Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, Hail Varsity Radio with you on a Tuesday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. A lot of NFL to get to, plenty of Husker news and notes, and we are loaded up today. We'll spend time with Mitch Sherman of The Athletic in about 15 minutes, talk some Big Red Ball with him, and then Husker standout and a staple with that Buffalo Bills culture. Chris Kelsay with us in about 30 minutes or so. So Chris Kelsay this hour along with Mitch Sherman. In hour two, Matt Schick of ESPN and the Schick and Nick podcast. Schick will be with us. And Mark Manning, Husker Wrestling coach. His team, his crew extraordinaire. We'll talk some wrestling with Coach Manning at 5:25. Numbers to get in today on Hail Varsity Radio at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can watch the show, contribute that way if you feel like doing so. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel for you. Can watch the show there. ESPN Lincoln, Facebook, and Twitter. And the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. Catch us 4 to 6. Catch Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, 7 to 9 weekday mornings. And can watch the show, both shows, on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Elijah, have you picked out your giant steak? It's the first time in a long time where you picked first, you picked correctly, and
it was really never in doubt.
It was never in doubt. It was never in doubt. We will get to the tough night of one of our favorites, Brett Maher, last night, as I still believe he is trending nationally. He'll bounce back. He may even have something to say about it in San Francisco next weekend. That thing's a 3.5-point number as we look forward to the divisional round. But we'll get there. Nebraska's on the road. They've been in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. Just to give you some updates, news and notes-wise, with Nebraska football, they've got a trio of guys they're looking at hosting here for 2023. A wideout from Nashville, Demetrius Bell. You have Evan Cooper, Marcus Satterfield, Coach Rhule. They were in home with him Monday. So that's pretty impressive. Bell's a 4-star recruit, rival and on 3. I think he's pretty big time. He's emerged as options. Good story here on the Journal-Star with Kentucky and Bama looking after him. Don Bosco, defensive lineman Sua Latufa. He's out of Arlington, Texas. And then you have Ismael Smith-Flores this weekend as well, the potential Iowa target at tight end. Nebraska also offering some high-star targets in the last 7 to 10 hours. Brady Altman's all over that with you on HailVarsity.com. So they are not resting despite winter conditioning up and going. Nebraska continuing to pound the pavement. You have a new NIL deal for Casey Thompson. That's good. That's big time to have a couple of options at quarterback and a returner. So that's where we're at with Nebraska. Listen, Brett Maher last night, Elijah.
Oh, yeah. We got to go there, don't we?
Brett Maher is a, first and foremost, talented kicker. Loved covering him when he was at Kearney. Loved covering him at Nebraska. And it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare where we don't really know the guy. We've talked to him a couple of times, but as Nebraskans, you cheer for Nebraskans. When you put your fan hat on, you sit down on the couch, and you kind of look at what's happening around the NFL. Some bright spots in the NFL. Well, for sure, Levante David and Ndamukong Suh, just to name a couple. and then Brett Maher, and of course Gifford down in Dallas, Malik Collins. You know the Huskers and where they're at. Rex Burkhead with the Texans as well. So a lot of Nebraska fans keep an eye on Nebraska players when they're into the NFL. Of course, what Zach Taylor's doing in Cincinnati is still smile. There's a lot of new Bengals fans. It's just not our pal Lars Anderson down in Birmingham, tucked into a corner of a wing shop with 4 other Bengal fans, right? I mean, listen, Jay Moore, we talked to him yesterday. He's a big Zach guy because of their friendship and their time in Lincoln. And, wow, Cincinnati's got a soft spot. A lot of Bills fans in town, too. And we'll talk to Chris Kelsay here in a bit. But, man, you look at what poor Maher went through last night. You could hear it in the voice. It was contrasting tones, right? It was Buck and Aikman going, oh, dear God, this poor guy. They're feeling his pain for him. And then there's the Manning brothers that are losing their mind because they're quarterbacks and they don't like kickers.
Yeah, they're sitting in the studio saying, how is there not a bigger pool of kickers in America we can turn to? It's not that.
Peyton's grabbing a football and he's ready to throw it through. Listen, did you ever see the Mike Vanderjagt interview during the Pro Bowl?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so there's my take, an innate hate of kickers from Peyton Manning, okay, because Mike Vanderjagt got hammered and mouthed off, and listen, our kicker got liquored up, and this was like a end of first quarter in Hawaii interview, and Peyton was completely annoyed. But you got the quarterbacks that, hey, man, I'm the quarterback, that mentality.
Well, it's that mentality of I just led this team down the field. You have one job.
Right, and this is what you go do. This is it. Man, well, let's start off with Jerry Jones, because this was a question. This was part of Scott Van Pelt's coverage last night, and the question was, okay, is Maher's job safe? Let's just preface it, 50 of 53 through the regular season, right? He missed an extra point last week. He's also bombed away from 65 yards away 2 weeks ago. The guy's got a missile for a leg, but it's been different since then. You've seen me golf, and about every fourth hole, I can't hit it through the uprights. I can't. I'm spraying left or I'm spraying right, and that's what he was doing. But Jerry Jones was elated in the press box because it was 6-0, then 12-0, then 18-0, and then 24-0, and you're 0 for 4 on extra points, and you can keep going to the guy. Finally, they went for it on fourth down, got the go-ahead, and then the extra point went through. But Jerry was asked point blank last night, are you shopping for a kicker?
Will you look at some kickers this week?
No. We won't. We just, he's done enough good ones.
There you go. Done enough good ones.
Done enough good ones.
Well, it's your golf analogy is perfect because you've gone golfing with your buddy that, is a lot better than you. Then there's just that one hole where...
The guy that picks up the phone and wants to go because he likes camaraderie.
Yeah, well, then, you know what? He slices a couple. And you go, okay, well, I'll give you a couple mulligans. Then he plays it down the third time. He goes, I'm going to play the slice this time.
Drop where you're at.
Well, no, he plays the slice. I'm going to aim way left. I'm going to play the slice. And then that's the first one he shoots all hole that goes straight. And that's what it was like last night with Maher, where the first one sliced. And you go, okay, that's a little out of character. The second one slices again, misses right. And then the third one, you can see he looks completely different when he goes to make the kick. He's playing the slice just about. And, oh, guess what? This one goes straight and it misses left. And now he's all in his own head. And thank God he got one more chance at the end. I was a little bit surprised McCarthy even sent him out there with.
Well, he wasn't going to let him kick a field goal.
Definitely was not going to.
But once it got to 30-6, it was safe. You know what?
Well, imagine if Maher had gone out there and missed that one when it was 30-6. If he goes and misses that extra point, what does that do for a guy's mental state?
Well, you're already there. You needed one to go down to get back into the frame of mind where I can do this.
Oh my God, I'm not cursed anymore.
Right. Well, and it's hilarious, and I think it's hilarious because it's not me. But I'm texting back and forth with Uncle Andy, who's we laid out. Uncle Andy's the biggest Cowboys fan ever, and he's waiting for something to go wrong. He's in straight Cub fandom or Sooner Magic Nebraska fan back in the day where, all right, you're up, and then momentum shifts and you're just hanging on. That whole fourth quarter of the Iowa-Nebraska game this season, or quite frankly, during the Frost era, you're up and you're waiting for it to end poorly and go down in flames as far as holding on to a lead. And how many games did you feel like you had put away that slipped? And, well, how did that happen? One of the all-time great comebacks for somebody else. That was Uncle Andy's text chain with me last night because he's the biggest Cowboy fan I know, and he's losing his mind. And it was ... so it begins. And it's 24-6. They're beating the hell out of Brady. They're pressuring him. They're getting hits. There's no run game. I mean, Tom's looking like a mess, and there's no answer defensively. Dak was on fire. The funniest thing I saw on Twitter was the fact that Dan Orlovsky said that Kellen Moore had the hand signals, some espionage going on. But, man, just absolutely rough for Maher, but he'll have something to say, I think. And it just, you just felt awful for a Nebraska guy. Absolutely felt awful for him.
But at least it happened in a game that was a blowout.
It was decided.
That's the saving grace. Like, imagine if the Cowboys could lose that game 35-31.
Yeah, well, think
that's going to be the end of the world.
Right. Think if you would have lost 21-18. And that's where Cowboys fans' minds were at. Dak Prescott coming to his rescue last night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Money Maher's biggest fan. Yeah, I mean, I talked to him individually, told him after the game, hey, let that go. We're going to need it. I just played a week ago, so, I mean, that happens. Knowing what that guy's done, what resiliency he's shown throughout his career personally, no doubt that he'll come back next week and be perfect and help us win.
I got caught up. Why did I bet Tampa? Why did I lose my steak and beer to Elijah? Because I bought into that overreaction. And it happens. Dallas has played bad. Dak's been a mess taking care of the football. They're going to go beat Tampa. As bad as Tampa's been, Tom Brady will find a way. They were garbage last night, and Dallas made them look like garbage.
Well, I think the prevailing thought was from you. The thought was, you know what? Tampa's been bad this year, but you don't bet against Brady in the playoffs. He'll get it figured out for the playoffs. They got their way into the playoffs, and now the real season begins for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Turns out an offense that was garbage all year long was going to continue being garbage in the postseason. It was simple as that. Dallas shut him down. It didn't matter how good Dallas's offense was last night because Tampa's offense was that bad.
Who's on the horn?
We got Chris on the line.
Chris, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Schmidt, don't lose sight of the fact that Maher's misses kept it, those of us degenerates, kept us on the under. So I am, God bless him, because that was a rough spot, but we cashed out on that one. So thanks, guys.
So Chris is like, look, Maher took care of some of us that loved the unders.
Maybe Maher had the under.
No, I don't think so. That would be suspendable. That's funny. So there's always a silver lining. Is the guy going to be able to keep his job with Dallas because he's been cut before, right, from Dallas? They brought him back. You're not going to go get a new kicker. And Chris is like, hey, his sudden case of the yips absolutely delivered for me because I had the unders. Man.
It's a good call. Thanks, Chris.
Chris, thank you for giving perspective to some. And there's the other side of the coin. Some of you had the overs, right? But last thought here, let's hear from Eli and Peyton. They weren't the most sensitive when it comes to, what they asked before half.
Oh, my God. You've got to be kidding me. I've never seen anything like it. Why are we kicking it? Why are we kicking it? What is going on? You can't believe it. Talk about a buzzkill. No one's ever missed three extra points in a row. That's got to be a record.
Cut a guy at halftime of a playoff game?
Got to be a record.
Easy, Eli or Peyton.
That was Peyton. Come on.
My good Lord. Told you he hates kickers. Randy is chiming in and is asking if there's, make it Sal. Sal's asking if there's any new portal options. Listen, Sal, Nebraska is going to go try and find another offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. Okay. and I would believe that they're going to wait till post-spring to do that unless they can land some.
Well,
they're focusing on some of the finishing touches of 2023 right now, the high school prospects.
And it's also a question from Randy as well, as shouldn't we be going after more linemen, especially on the offensive side of the ball? Yeah, you would if you could, but as we've heard from Brandon Vogel a couple times, and the prevailing common knowledge among the transfer portal is offensive linemen that are ready-made are like gold in the transfer portal. They're not a dime a dozen. You're going to have one or two in the portal that are ready-made and that they can step in and start anywhere in any given cycle, and those guys are going to be recruited by anyone and everyone. So yes, you'd like to have offensive linemen, but it's not like they're easy to get. A guy that we could be talking about, though, is Omar Spates from Oregon State, the linebacker. That's a guy that there's been some peer recruiting from some guys coming into this Nebraska class, and also from guys that are currently on the roster. So that's a name to watch. He's a guy that was all Pac-12 last season.
Okay, Omar would be good. Oregon State finished right around 10th in the country, I think. Beat Oregon this year. So, yeah, they'll hit the portal, I totally believe. Nebraska right now, as it stands, with portal linemen, they are 1 in 3, because you lost out.
You lost Rouse, you lost Wazuka, but you got Scott.
Right, and then the other kid out of Rhode Island.
Oh, so you're 1 for 4.
1 for 4, but not
Cornelius.
But not 0 for 4. We'll check in with Mitch Sherman. More of your calls coming up.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Chris Kelsay, 15 minutes away. Matt Schick. Next hour, Coach Manning joins us at 5:25. Mitch Sherman joins us now at The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, did you have the overs or unders last night?
On the Cowboys and
Bucs.
Is that what we're talking about? On the
yes.
over 3.5 missed extra points?
No,
is that the question?
no, I didn't know there was such a problem.
Well, you probably could have gotten pretty good odds on that one. If somebody bet that, they're probably a millionaire now.
Yeah, I don't know what I would have taken. I don't even know what the number was on it, but what they scored 45, so probably would have come in. I would have come in under that. I don't know. I didn't think about it.
No, we had a caller say the silver lining with Maher was the unders hit because of those missed extra points.
Because of him.
Yes.
So there you go. I mean, hey, look, the game wasn't really in doubt. What would be terrible is if he had that kind of a performance in a one-score game, and it changed everything. Now he's got that out of his system, so just go ahead and get everything straightened out against the Niners.
That's about right, and we'll see if it happens. Maher could be the hero. It's funny how sports works, right? You're goat to hero or hero to goat. It just depends.
Imagine now if he hits the kick to send him to the Super Bowl in a couple weeks, and then what kind of a story that'll be.
Or hits the Super Bowl game-winning kick.
It's the Cowboys we're talking about. I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl this year. We'll see.
I'm not going that far.
That's your bridge too far. Mitch, been busy for Nebraska, and Coach Rhule and company going to be hosting more kids for the weekend. They're continuing their tour and travels. And what's your gut say right now with some of the portal additions, specifically some of the high-star talent that were once at an SEC program that are now in Lincoln? Do you think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, or do you think you can get more of a Trey Palmer type impact, or even a Casey Thompson type impact? I mean, that's what you're aiming for, but how do you feel about some of the acquisitions Nebraska's made?
Yeah, good question. I wrote a whole big piece about that'll be out tomorrow morning on The Athletic. So I'll give you a little preview of what I thought. So I gave kind of an upside grade to every one of the 9 transfers that are in for Nebraska, and I didn't count Xavier Betts and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda in that group because they're not transferring from other schools, although both were in the portal, and I addressed the 2 of them and what that means for Nebraska in the same piece. You know, I think, one, Jeff Sims has the highest upside potential just because of the fact that he's a quarterback and he's got 2 years and he can be a bridge for this program before Matt Rhule gets somebody out of high school that he wants very badly.
Say the name.
and then everybody, I think, wants very bad. Everybody associated with the Nebraska program obviously has their eyes on Dylan Raiola as this recruiting cycle turns toward 2024. And it was, of course, Matt Rhule's first stop this week when the doors opened back up to go on the road. He went to Chandler, Arizona. So, Sims plays and he's more than a bridge. I mean, he can be a guy that gets this off on a good foot. I think he has a high ceiling, and we'll see, because he's going to be in a competition in some shape or form with Casey Thompson. What Thompson can do in the spring, other than take mental reps and learn Marcus Satterfield's offense, remains to be seen. But he's at the top of my list. Sims is on upside grades, and I think that Ben Scott, the center from Arizona State, is the guy who is most likely to hit. Nebraska last year placed so much stock in getting hits out of the portal and having a high hit rate. I think it was really the only way that that coaching staff in 2022 could have managed to pull a giant turnaround, was to do something like what Michigan State did the year before and hit on just about every one of 15 transfers that you bring in. And for Nebraska, it was more like 6 or 7, and a few of them were big hits. You mentioned Trey Palmer; he was the biggest, and Casey, was right there too, because he plays that quarterback spot. But I look at Sims, I look at Scott, I look at MJ Sherman potentially as a guy who can give you something that you really need at an outside linebacker spot as Nebraska changes and adjusts into Tony White's defensive scheme. And the other guy I gave an A to was Corey Collier, the safety, who didn't necessarily live up to, or certainly didn't live up to his recruiting billing in 2 years at Florida, but he was a top 100 guy out of the Miami, and I think can be of big help to Nebraska at safety or at Rover, which is another change to this defense that we'll see with Tony White.
Mitch, can you give me an under-the-radar guy Nebraska's already got in the boat as far as the transfer portal that you think maybe not going to make an impact this season, but is going to be a guy a couple years from now or even this next season that you think, we're not talking about him now, but he could be a really big pickup for Matt Rhule and staff?
Well, I'll give you one that's got to be this season because he has just 1 year, and that's Billy Kemp, the wide receiver from Virginia. And, he's played 6 years of college. He's only eligible because of the tragedy that happened at Virginia this November, where 3 players were shot and killed, and the NCAA gave all Virginia players the opportunity to scrub that season from their eligibility charts. And Billy Kemp, as an undersized slot receiver, was going to give the NFL a shot before he received that opportunity to play another season. So with that chance, he's coming to Nebraska, and he's a seasoned guy. I think he's different from what Nebraska has at the receiver spots. I mean, you can certainly look at Alante Brown and say they play a similar position, but receiver is a spot where you can have 2 guys that do similar things and they can both contribute. And I think Billy Kemp, while under the radar right now, if he's healthy, and he had some injury issues this last year at Virginia, but if he's healthy, he can be a big piece in this offense and kind of a security blanket for the quarterback, whether it's Sims or Thompson.
Nebraska's receiver room getting a bump, not only with Kemp, but you have Washington, presumably, and then Alante's done nice work, and he could have a breakout. I want to go to Betts, and what do you think happens moving forward? Do you think he contributes, he finds some stability, or is it always going to be, man, what could have been?
Well, he's moving past that. He's moving to that next step of getting beyond what could have been. That would have, I think, been the forever narrative with Xavier Betts if his departure from the team turned permanent. And it's just been a year, so it's not like he's been away from the sport for 24 months or anything like that. It's similar to if a guy had a big injury. He's going to have to get back into the right frame of mind. But I think that was kind of the hurdle with Xavier from the beginning was he had to make a decision coming out of high school, maybe even when he was in high school, if he had all of the passion that was necessary to play and be the best that he could be. I mean, he could be an all-state kind of player, even a high school All-American kind of player without pouring everything that he had into the game of football. And I'm not knocking him. That's just his personality. And he has to decide and has had to make that decision as to whether he has the love for the game that you need to play it at a high level if you're going to be in the Power 5. And, he made a decision that he didn't last spring, and something has changed with him. So it'll be interesting when he's back in the mix, or when he decides to talk about that, to see what clicked. And, I think some of it may have had to do with the changing situation at Nebraska. I didn't expect that Xavier was ever going to go and resurface at a program out of state. That didn't seem to fit with what I knew about him personally. So the fact that Nebraska made a change and there's a different environment that exists within the Nebraska program now with Matt Rhule, it's something that he can see that Xavier can see himself in, and we'll see if it clicks, if it fits. Right now, they're just at the very beginning, but they've made steps. With Matt Rhule reaching out to him and bringing Xavier back into the fold with a fresh start, they've made steps to move forward. And, it very much remains to be seen whether it's going to click and, he turns into the athlete and the receiver that we know he can be. He's an NFL kind of talent, but it takes more than just the talent to get to that level.
How do you think Rhule can click or connect with Xavier?
Well, it's not just Rhule; it's his coaching staff too, and he's got a guy in Garrett McGuire who's young. Obviously, that's the first thing you're going to say about Garrett McGuire as receivers coach is that he's young. I think McGuire has, like his dad at Texas Tech, who went very fast from being a high school head coach to a college assistant coach to now a successful college head coach. He's got an ability to connect with football players, with people, and I think Garrett, in just briefly meeting him, I think he has some of those intangibles too. So, while you don't want to throw too much on a 23-year-old assistant coach who's never done this before, I think one thing that he'll succeed at very naturally is just connecting on a personal level with players, and that's what Xavier Betts needs. He needs a guy around him, somebody who's in charge of his position or in charge of the offense or in charge of the team as a whole, who can connect with him as a person. And, I think he struggled to find that somewhat in the last couple of years at Nebraska. And even when Mickey Joseph came in and was his receivers coach, Mickey was all business with those guys. That's just the way that he was. And, it worked with some players and it brought out the best in some players. And then it didn't work with some guys. And there was an urgency that those guys had last year as things changed in the program. But I obviously it wasn't the right fit for Xavier, and he walks back in now to a completely different situation where it's a brand new staff with everybody's at square one. And these guys, if one thing that they've proved in their time, not McGuire, he hasn't been there, but one thing that Matt Rhule and his staff have proved in their time at Temple and at Baylor as college coaches is that they're going to take a personal interest in the players that they coach. Not to say that other coaches don't, but it seems to be a strength of Matt Rhule and his staff. And I do think that's a large part of what Xavier Betts needs for him to be in an environment where he succeeds.
Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, it flew by. Thank you much for jumping on with us. We'll get connected again and keep up the great work, bud.
Okay, thanks, guys.
There he is, Mitch Sherman with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. We'll talk some NFL and Huskers. Chris Kelsay on the way.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Standout Husker, 10-year vet with the Buffalo Bills. We say hi to Chris Kelsay. Chris, thanks for a few minutes. How you doing?
My pleasure. I'm doing great. Every day is a great day, right?
It is, and it's been even better with this playoff run.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a great playoff run for the Bills and everybody else who's made it as far. It's tough, right? You start with 32 teams, and ultimately at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you have one that's feeling good about themselves and 31 that are kind of licking their wounds going into the offseason.
As you look at Buffalo, want to dive in there with Allen and company and the emotion they've been through. Where are you at as a proud former Bill with their momentum right now?
I feel good, although, they looked vulnerable at times this weekend against the Dolphins, especially when you consider a third-string quarterback that they're going against. But you know what? Cincinnati Bengals showed some vulnerabilities too. So I think it'll be a good game. I'm sure that there will be some emotions when they meet up next Sunday or Saturday, whenever it is. I haven't even looked. Just, reliving what happened on that Monday night to Demar. It was something that nobody's ever seen, really, as far as I know. I remember I was watching it with my wife and a few other couples, and when they started doing CPR, you're kind of questioning whether or not he's going to make it off the field, and that's scary. I don't know anybody that's been around sports long enough has seen plenty of injuries, obviously, but nothing like that. And so thank God he's on the mend and out of the hospital, and it sounds like he's heading in the right direction for a full recovery. So answered prayers there, and I'm sure that still sticks with a lot of his teammates there in Buffalo, but. Being able to talk to him via FaceTime the other day prior to the game. And, obviously he's at the stadium, I'm sure, this weekend. And just a little extra momentum, a little extra motivation for him to do well in the playoffs.
Chris Kelsay's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Husker standout, and Buffalo Bill. What is the experience like for you to follow Buffalo, given your entire professional career being spent up there and just what they're on the cusp of? What do you think of their makeup, their nucleus? Obviously, Allen's phenomenal, but just as you look at their roster, what can be the difference for them this year?
I think it's just their entire organization and how it's ran. I know Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean, the general manager, they were together for Carolina. They came to Buffalo together. Obviously, Dable, who was their offensive coordinator prior to this year, and Ken Dorsey taking over, is now the head coach in New York with the Giants, and they won the other day too. So it's just they know what they're doing. They have a process. They follow the process to the T, and they have buy-in from all the guys on the roster, and that's big because sure there's some young talent on that team, but sometimes that's a hard thing to do in the NFL is combining all these different personalities and all these different backgrounds and different people making different kinds of money and put it all together for one common goal, and that's to win football games. And they've been able to do it. Obviously, you mentioned Josh Allen, and what a quarterback he is. And it's a quarterback-driven league, and anytime you have a talent like him and you see how he's progressed throughout his career, it's something to hang your hat on because they don't come around very often. That's why every year, this time of year, you got people looking for ways to get that hidden gem on their roster. Because if you get a talent like him, it can last a long time bearing, any injuries and stuff that's out of your control. But they definitely have the pieces in place, that's for sure, to make a long run of this thing.
Chris Kelsay with his love or hate going up against quarterbacks similar to Josh Allen, that dual threat.
It's always tough. When I was playing, obviously being in the same division as the Patriots, we play Tom Brady twice a year, so I faced him 20 times in my career. And, he's not going to get outside the pocket and, get a first down with his legs. But there's a lot of them do, and that's what everybody's looking for, is somebody that doesn't have to necessarily be a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or one of those, but somebody that's mobile enough, you see man-to-man coverage and all the backs facing you, you're taking off to get a first down. There's a lot of them in the league now, and everybody, like I said, is trying to find that person. I'd rather have a pocket passer who you can just kind of pin your ears back and try to get to him rapport, but it's tough. You see guys, this weekend where defenses have to delegate one guy for kind of a spy on these mobile quarterbacks just to make sure they don't run. I'd much prefer a pocket passer, but those are few and far between right now.
You got to get a guy that's pass first but mobile enough. Absolutely. You mentioned you faced Brady 20 times, and right now it sounded like a fare thee well from him, but I think he still has too much gas in the tank to step away. He's still at a high level, different level, but still a high level. What do you think of Brady and his future, and what sticks out to you about all the times you faced him?
Well, it's one of those deals. I wouldn't even call it a rivalry because I don't even want to mention how many times out of those 20 times we faced each other that we in Buffalo won. But you respect the heck out of him, man, what him and Belichick were able to do, and then what he's done in Tampa. I know that last night was disappointing, but you hit the nail on the head. He's still performing at a very high level. I'd be really surprised if he decided to hang it up. I think he has a lot left to prove to himself and prove to everybody else. There's a reason why he's considered the GOAT and continues to perform at a high level. The thing is, as far as I think, from last year to this year, they were so beat up on the offensive line. And we just talked about it. He's not a mobile quarterback. He needs some time to sit back there and dissect defenses and throw the ball around the field. And he just didn't have time. I think he had the ball gone within a couple seconds, more times than not. So he's able to adapt and adjust, and that's another huge asset of his. But I think he still has a lot left to give, even at his age. I mean, it doesn't look like he's slowing down much. So I'd be surprised if he's done.
You look at landing spots, and you hear Miami, you hear Vegas, and you look at the talent around what he is versus what he's been. And to me, it makes sense to find a spot that has some pretty good pieces around that can he can enhance their skill set versus carry a team. Is that a fair take?
Absolutely. I mean, he can be selective where he goes. He wants a good supporting cast because he doesn't have very more years. Obviously, he's on the end of his journey as opposed to more in the front. But he still has 3 fingers, right? He got 3 more rings to win, and so he's going to make sure to go to a place that he feels best about winning a championship.
A few more minutes. Chris Kelsay continues with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Matt Schick on the way, and then head coach for Nebraska Wrestling, Mark Manning, coming up at 5:25. Remember to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes in mind. Straight ahead, the driver has one job: to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. More with Chris Kelsay on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Chris Kelsay with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Great to get caught up with you, Chris. Thoughts on Nebraska and the new staff with Coach Rhule, beating the streets?
I've been very impressed. I'm an optimist. I'm always excited this time of year for what's to come. There's something different about him. I had an opportunity to speak with him briefly here in Omaha a few weeks back when he was in town, along with his OC and special teams coordinator. I love their mentality. I love their mindsets, and obviously they're putting in the work. They're hitting the pavement, getting all these places, and really spending a lot of time trying to improve our roster. And, we have talent on this team, but we don't have a ton of premier talent. And that's what they're trying to get. Obviously, the NIL world we live in now changes kind of this platform. I think we do pretty well in that regard as far as NIL is concerned. I know we're in the top 5, I believe, in the country. And I know there's some big differences between, number 1 and number 2 and where we're at. But we're doing pretty good for where we're at right now, just a couple years into it. And that's the difference between now and when I played is prior to NIL and prior to all this transfer portal stuff, you can turn a roster pretty quick. It's just a matter of finding the right kids, I think. You need to find a kid that isn't just chasing the dollar bills, but he's chasing championships. And again, that's few and far between right now because these kids are seeing green, and they're chasing money. And we need to get those talented kids that can come in here and want to stay and win a championship for the state.
Chris, what was passed on to you as a black shirt, and what did you pay forward after your time in Lincoln pre-NIL, but there was still a standard you got brought into, and then you also paid forward?
Yeah, for me, it was just I was a little different case because I had a brother that went before me, and I knew what it meant to be a black shirt from being around him, being around Grant, being around Jared, JP, all those guys before me. And that rang true and hit me at the heart. I didn't want to let those guys down. And then when you have new kids coming in, especially those that are out of state that might not know what even a black shirt was, the way I tried to portray to them how much it meant and the fraternity that you're in, once you receive your first black shirt, it's through my example, just the way I worked out, whether it's during season, off season, in the weight room, on the field. I try to lead by example and hold myself to a high standard. I'm not one of those that says a whole lot unless it needs to be said. And so I think that's one thing that carried over into my professional career too. I was voted a captain by my peers because of that. They knew that if I'm going to say something, I'm going to do it as well. I'm not going to hold you to one standard and then hold myself to another. So that's kind of how I've treated my whole life. I want to live by example, and being a parent, a husband, and all those things, I live it in my daily life as well.
Chris Kelsay with us, Hail Varsity Radio. If the Bills get to the Super Bowl, are you going?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I have a choice. My kids and my wife they've wanted to go to every game. We try to get out there, once a year. It's awfully tough now because my kids are old enough where they're busy every weekend with their own activities and sports. They're very much involved my girls are big in volleyball, and Rhett does just about everything. So it's tough, but they wanted to go to the playoff game last week. They wanted to go to the Cincinnati game coming up this weekend. And I told them if we made it to the Super Bowl and head down to Arizona, I'd take them down there. So, yeah, that's in the plans, but let's not put the cart before the horse and jinx us.
Chris, best to you and your fam. Thanks for a few minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Happy New Year.
Good stuff from Chris Kelsay. That'll be on the podcast. We'll segment that interview. And, of course, our sit-down with Mitch Sherman. Matt Schick of Schick and Nick at ESPN Radio and TV. Next hour, Mark Manning with us. And don't forget, Roadshow tomorrow. We'll talk Huskers and make snow angels. Downtown Rosie's tomorrow is where we're at. 10th and P. Come see us. 4 to 6, Roadshow, Rosie's, downtown Lincoln, ahead of Nebraska, Ohio State. Nachos and hot dogs. Nacho cheese and hot dogs, Elijah Herbel.
Yes, please.
And much more. Hour 2 on the way.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. We welcome in with ESPN, Sirius XM, ESPN U. Matt Schick with us at ESPN_Schick. Mr. Schick, how was Massachusetts?
Massachusetts was great. It was great. It was cold. The temperatures didn't reach 40 degrees, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm incredibly soft. I had just a spring jacket on because I failed to dress for where I was headed. Very rookie mistake. But it was good. Got to see some good high school basketball players, none of which are headed to Nebraska. So it was good. It was a good thing to see.
Well, there's NIL, but I get what you're saying. Listen, you saw Bronny James and Cameron Boozer. I mean, big-time showcase game.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was standing room only. There's police everywhere. These are celebrities. These are guys that are meal tickets for a lot of people. I mean, and I don't mean Bronny. And frankly, I don't mean Cameron Boozer. I think their families are fine. But they are going to make a lot of money for people. And Cameron Boozer's the number 1 sophomore. He and his brother Caden are twins. One's 6'9", the other's 6'2" or 3 or whatever he is. They're both very good. Cameron Boozer is going to be a future NBA star. And they're sophomores. And I'm watching them going, where do they create these people? Like, I know Carlos Boozer's his dad. But, his wife couldn't have been, 6'8". I mean, this is ridiculous what's happening here. These people did not look like this when I was roaming the high schools, still getting wedgies, but still, they didn't look like this. And so it's incredible. And then Bronny James is just, you're the son of the king, and he's going, he's getting double digits. He's doing his thing, and everyone's there to see him. I mean, I would say next to Tiger Woods' kid, Charlie, I mean, he's the most popular son of an athlete going right now. It's really amazing.
Matt Schick is with us. Schick and Nick podcast dropped, and if you haven't caught it, it is a exquisite tour of the state of Nebraska with one Coach Ed Foley. You mentioned Loomis, but you circled a lot of different towns in Nebraska. Coach Foley and Elijah Herbel love massive amounts of nacho cheese on their gas station hot dog. Schick, have you done that?
I've never done the nacho cheese on the dog, but I'm not going to lie. When I saw the picture, I wasn't hating it. I mean, Foley, it's almost like he said, "Hey, can I have some hot dog with my nacho cheese?" Like it was the thing. The hot dog needed a snorkel in that stuff, and I was fine with it. But yeah, Ed Foley doing the Tour de Central Nebraska cuisine and stopping off at a place to get a gallon of nacho cheese on his hot dog with 9 jalapenos on it. We have reached out. The Schick and Nick podcast has reached out to Nebraska Athletics. We are efforting an interview with Ed Foley. I hope we can do it. I don't want to talk football. I want to talk, nacho cheese and hot dogs, and hopefully we will do that. But credit to him for doing the tour. It's we joked on the podcast, were there more pictures that he took of his trip or more Division I recruits in central Nebraska? To kind of poke a little fun at the at the area, which I still call my second home. But I give Ed Foley a lot of credit. He seems like a genuine guy, and I hope he enjoyed his hot dog.
Well, Matt, before you talk with Ed Foley, if that does come to fruition, you have to try a hot dog with nacho cheese on top. There's 2 places to get it, either a high school concession stand or a gas station. Those are the 2 acceptable locations. And if you happen to find a restaurant that serves it, I guess you can try it too. But the true experience is at a gas station or a high school sporting event. And I'll tell you, it tastes like high blood pressure and heart disease. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's heart attack on a bun, and I'm totally fine with that. When you die, no one's going to know if it was because of the hot dog or not. So, there's not a lot of dots you could connect. I guess it's your track record of your diet, but it is something that I am going to. We don't have a Casey's General Store around here, which is unfortunate. We have some 7-Elevens. I'm not sure if they offer the nacho cheese. Maybe a movie theater would. Wherever you can get nachos and a hot dog, I'm sure you could ask them. Hey,
exactly.
when you put butter halfway through this gallon of popcorn that I'm about to eat and die during the showing of Dances with Wolves, can you also put in this gallon of nacho cheese, which normally goes on chips, and put that on this 4-inch long hot dog? That'd be great.
Gas station mistakes. Have there been any? Like as far as cuisine?
We drove a halfway cross-country trip from Charlotte to Nebraska, and on our way, we stopped at I can't remember what the gas station was. It was a huge gas station. And then I was like, oh, my goodness, they have, like, caramel macchiatos in here. And I would advise a deluxe coffee mixture at a gas station. We, in a related story, did have to stop at another gas station 10 miles down the road, but it was good. No, it was a good trip.
Anyone in Dallas willing to buy Brett Maher a gas station hot dog today?
Is there any more thing that is indicative of sports culture that it's a what have you done for me lately, or frankly, what did you not do for me lately culture? The guy is a kicking guru and then stumbles into a 4 PAT missed night, and then Jerry Jones after the game is asked, are you going to look for a different kicker? I mean, if you would have said before the game that after the game Jerry Jones is going to be asked, how about a new kicker? You would have said, what, are you crazy? And we use the term yips a lot. Mm-hmm. Does anyone know what yips are? Is that a technical term? Is that a doctor terminology, a WebMD? I'm not sure. But it certainly looked like it last night. Whether you're putting from 3 feet or kicking from 38 yards, that's not good. It was tough to see for a Nebraska guy. Tough to see.
It was, and we covered Maher in Lincoln and part of his high school career, and I know you did out in central Nebraska as well. And guy's a stud ball player, and it was Maher, Cam. You couldn't turn away. Now, thankfully, there was the delayed cut to when it went through, and then you heard cheers, but you could just see him kind of out of his mind, that blank stare, so to speak, on the sideline where what's going on? He just hit a 65-yarder 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like you're, a great three-point shooter who for some reason keeps missing layups.
Mm-hmm.
You go, hold on a second, Steph, figure this thing out. And how it just gets into your head. I mean, we always talk about this, like whether it's in recruiting or other aspects of sports, where the question isn't, are you good? It's not from the neck down, it's from the neck up. And frankly, when you're kicking, it's not man versus man, it's man versus self. And it's like golf. You're out there by yourself. Sure, they might be able to block it, but frankly, it's right there on a tee. Figure it out. And if you don't, one missed kick can turn into 7. And then what do you do? I mean, kicking is like, I would love for my son to grow up to be a punter or a kicker, but I wouldn't want him to be that if he misses one, right? And you're going to miss one. It's like a relief pitcher. All right, your job is to go in there and get 3 outs. Oh, you blew the save? Oh, now you blew 3 saves. Why are you on the roster? And your career's over. So, yeah, it's tough.
We'll spend a moment here on Coach Prime. And what's your reaction to some of the blowback that Deion's been getting from other coaches, his technique, or his... I thought he was great on the Manning cast last night. That was pretty good stuff. But overall, how do you think Coach Prime's been navigating his new role?
I think he's been great. I think there are a few things that he's going to have to learn. There are coaches saying, hey, he is contacting a kid who has committed to us and signed with us. You can't do that. Okay, well, maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Coaches will figure it out. And they'll police. Sometimes you just have to police themselves, and the fact that a coach comes out and says that is good. They come out and say it. It's better than a Mac Brown coming out and saying, "Hey, there's schools out there offering Drake May millions of dollars." Who? I don't want to say. Okay, fine. Don't say anything. So, at least with Prime, it's you can put a face to the name and vice versa. And I think frankly, the Cormani McClain recruitment is one that's really interesting to watch because he's a 5-star corner. I talked to him over at the Under Armour All-America game, and he was committed to Miami. And then his mom on National Signing Day says Cormani will not be signing today, which is just great theater. And she tweets that out. So at Under Armour Week, I interview him. He still hasn't signed with Miami. And I said, who's it down to? You and who? Or Miami and who? He goes, Miami and Miami. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And we got that interview. And then the signing period, or at least the evaluation period, opens up. And the defensive coaches, the entire defensive coaching staff for Miami, show up at his school. And he's not there. Why? Because he's on a trip to Colorado to see Deion Sanders. And so I would imagine, here's what's going to happen here. Cormani McClain, a 5-star corner, is going to announce, I would imagine soon, that he's going to play for Deion at Colorado. And then you're going to have Cormani McClain and Travis Hunter, who was the number 2 player overall last year, number one overall corner. You're going to have 2 5-star corners for Colorado overnight. I mean, think about how the transfer portal can transform a roster at the drop of a hat. It's incredible. And, it's bad for some teams, good for others. But, if anyone can do it, you want to say no to Deion, God bless you. But he's such a charismatic guy. He was just on the cover of GQ magazine. It's hard to imagine. I love what he said in a recent speech to his team. He said, I know I look good. I'm 55. I look good, but I don't have time to waste. No. And I don't have time for this. I'm not here to build. I'm here to win. And, man, was Deion Sanders created for the transfer portal or what?
He is, and 5-star corners, 3-star corners that can get coached up aren't going to say no to him at that position. Nebraska keeps busy, as we touched on, with their additions in the roster and the portal, and they've been able to comb some high-profile SEC prospects that just hadn't seen the field. That will be interesting with how year one goes. Schick, you have Football Scoop that ranks the Buffs in Nebraska the number 11 non-conference game of 2023.
Oh, it's going to be outstanding. And it's good to know that it's going to be Prime's first home game. That Arizona State-Colorado scuttlebutt is over and done with, so that'll be good. And I think Colorado's got TCU the week prior. That's on the road. Mm-hmm. So you'll have a nice 0-1 Colorado team taking on Nebraska at that time. But I think it'll be, just the vibes going into that game, two new head coaches, a lot of new players, frankly, a lot of unknowns with the rosters that I can't wait. I think that's going to be that's about as good as it gets. It's too bad it's not the season opener for both, but I think for both teams it's probably the best just to get it's one thing to have a rivalry game, it's another to have your opening game, and so I think this will be good.
Bills are on a collision course. They get Cincy this weekend at home. Have you rounded up enough Super Bowl tickets for you and the fam?
Well, Super Bowl is absolutely out of the question. Absolutely not going to be doing that. I started doing the math because when they found out it was going to be in Atlanta, I'm like, well, that's 4 hours from my house, the AFC Championship game. That's 4 hours from my house. So I went online, filled out my name, and said, okay, I'll put my name in the lottery to get tickets. Well, it's like winning the lottery for tickets. It's the only lottery that costs you millions of dollars when you win it, right? so it's I'm starting to do the math on it. I'm like, okay, six kids. Oh, God help me. Four kids plus my wife plus me times what is it? Like, what's it going to be? $300? Like, could you imagine the amount of money you have to spend to go watch a neutral site AFC Championship game? So hopefully we win the lottery, but hopefully we don't. I'm full of mixed emotions on that because I know if I win the lottery, I'm probably going to want to go. And I'm already trying to find out how many friends I know along the way to Atlanta or in Atlanta so that I can stay with them and double their home occupancy for a night so that I don't have to spend so much money on a hotel. But if they can get by Cincinnati, that might be where we're headed. It's going to be a very interesting thing because I don't know that there's any team right now that you would look at and go, that's your Super Bowl champ. And it might just be the Chiefs, to be honest with you.
Well, I think you and Mrs. Schick go and you leave the kids at home.
Yeah, or just me. I mean, why does it have to be anybody?
I think you make an executive decision.
Well, the thing is about it is my youngest, he's 7, and he's a Chiefs fan.
Wow.
And why is he a Chiefs fan? Because he likes Patrick Mahomes, and he plays Madden, and he pretends he's Mahomes. He's got Chiefs clothing. And so
he's disqualified.
Well, no, here's the thing. He gets thrown onto a table with Bill's Mafia. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So it's going to be a painful trip for him if he goes, as he becomes the sacrificial lamb. You know how the old meme of the Lion King when Rafiki is holding the Simba and then chucks him off the thing? That might be what happens here.
But it's your son in a Patrick Mahomes jersey going through a table. I love that.
That's right. Who's your daddy now? Right, time to join Bill's Mafia. That's right.
Just make sure no one's filming with Child Protective. But other than that, Matt Schick with us. Schick, thanks for the time, man. Great stuff. Great work as always. And good luck to the Bills. Thanks for a few minutes.
Oh, he's good, guys. I'm kind of rooting for him and against him at the same time. So looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks to Matt Schick, Chris Kelsay with us earlier in the show. Hail Varsity presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. And Husker Wrestling is crushing it. Head coach for Nebraska Wrestling, Mark Manning, back with us. Coach, how we doing?
Hey, good, Chris. Doing all right.
Yeah, you guys are. Congrats on the wins, the duels, and Iowa City looms. Let's go back to last weekend and spend a moment just on the kids. Not kids, but you know what I mean. On your guys and the work they put in and how you're feeling at the moment.
Yeah, Chris. We had, 2 tough teams in Minnesota coming in on Friday night, and then with Northwestern on Sunday. Both have really good teams, and Northwestern took 6th in the nation last year. They had 4 All-Americans coming back, and Minnesota's always a tough out. Mm-hmm. So we knew there were going to be 2 tough challenges, and our guys really responded well. We really wrestled consistent, I would say. We lost some matches that we thought we might get, tight matches in both duels, but we also won a lot of tight matches, and we just put a lot of points on the board. I think the crowd and the people that came, the response we got from everyone just really liked our aggressiveness and how many points we put on the board. Just a lot of action, and it was really 2 fun duels, and our guys really put in the work to really display that effort.
Mark Manning with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Nebraska Wrestling, Iowa City this Friday. Coach, you started the season with the Cliff Keen Invitational. It's one of the early season invites, one of the biggest. You won the Navy Classic, and you've seen improvement. Brock Hardy and Lenny Pinto are 2 names that have continued to get better. Speak to their development and also just what it takes to stay focused, but also stay in the right mind frame. If you're off to a slow start, but that bounce back's clearly happening.
Yeah, I think the 2 young men you mentioned, and I would put Silas Allred along with that too. Those guys are all redshirt freshmen. Brock Hardy is a young man who went on his Mormon mission. So we feel like we signed him about 5 years ago, but he's 22-year-old freshman, and he signed out of high school. He went on his Mormon mission for 2 years, came back during COVID. That was really a nothing year, and then redshirted last year. So Brock Hardy's a very experienced, obviously a mature young man, and just a neat kid, man. Great competitor. He doesn't look like a typical wrestler. He kind of looks like an old man. Our guys on our team kind of kid him, like Brock Hardy, you're the old man. But he's a freshman and he's wrestling with a lot of confidence. He won the Cliff Keen, like what you mentioned, is one of the toughest tournaments out there. And then, he's just been. We knew he was capable of this, and now he's ranked in the top 5 in the country at his weight class at 141, and he's just a freshman. Then Lenny Pinto is just, he's our Rocky, man. He's the Italian stallion, and he's a fun kid, and he's wide open. I think we had more response of how Lenny Pinto wrestled on Friday and Sunday than any guy on our team, and we had some impressive performances. But Lenny wrestles with a burst of energy. He's an explosive young man, and you don't see a guy 184 move like he does, and he's really explosive. He's fun to watch, and he's just a go-getter. He's a pinner, and he's always one little move or throw away from putting someone on their back, and he's been a huge catalyst in our team. Just fun-loving. He doesn't fear anyone. He's just a great kid to coach, and comes from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Great parents, and he's a freshman. And then Silas Allred at 197. He's had a great weekend and beat 2 tough competitors. And another guy who's just getting better and better. From the middle of November till now, he's a different kid. And you just see these guys developing, and it's fun to be around. It's fun to coach these guys. They want to get better, and they embrace the hard work.
Mark Manning with us, Nebraska Wrestling, Hail Varsity Radio. Liam Cronin, 2 top 5 wins, named National Wrestler of the Week today. What's that mean?
Man, Liam's very deserving of that. He's just stayed steady. he's a basically a fifth-year senior. We medicaled him last year. He broke his hand early in the year, and his foot, he had a broken foot too. So he was kind of all beat up last year. We medicaled him. We got him another year of eligibility, and he's just been another guy, just a spark plug. We try to start off at 125. He's the lowest weight class, and Liam just comes out there with a ton of energy. He's strong. He's explosive. He's a good athlete, and he's really worked himself into that. Like you mentioned, he beat the number 3 ranked guy or 4 ranked guy on Friday, and then the 3rd ranked kid in the country on Sunday. Not a small task, and he beat him in decisively. He dominated both matches. He put up a lot of points, and he has he's wrestling a 4-time national champ on Friday, so we better be ready to wrestle Spencer Lee. But Liam is, and we really like where Liam is. So he's very impressive and very deserving of that award.
You mentioned what looms on Friday, Coach Manning, and that's Iowa in Iowa City. Tell me a little bit about the difference between wrestling in front of the home fans. Obviously, a big weekend in front of the home fans that you just got done with. What's the difference between wrestling in front of the home fans and going on the road and wrestling, not only on the road, but in a place like Iowa City?
Well, one, it's 15,000. They're packed every duel, 15,000 fans. They're rowdy, to say the least. I don't know a more tactful word to use than that, but they have some very nice adjectives they use when they call out our names, and it's a tough environment to win, and they just their crowd creates a 11th man type of atmosphere. It's hard to beat those guys in Carver Hawkeye. And, I think our group's really up for it. They really are looking forward to this duel. I think we match up well, up and down the lineup. They have tough guys, obviously. They're ranked number 2 in the country for a reason. So, you have to beat the champ. You got to go punch him in the face. You got to knock him down. You got to go take it to him. So we're going to take the fight to him on Friday. And so it's going to be fun, and that's a great thing about coaching. You never know, and we've never beat them in Carver Hawkeye. So, is this the team this year? We'll see. But it's a fun challenge, and I think our guys are really up for it. And I think they're in a good mental frame state of mind.
Coach, what's your take on the locker room speech before a match like that, wherever you're going up against Iowa? And you list off a lot of things that I assume are going to come up in that pregame speech, but what's your take? How important is it to get these guys in the right frame of mind before going and wrestling in front of that crowd?
I think it all starts with our practice through the week, and we had some good practices today, and I think the message stays the same the whole week, and then on Friday night we just get them, locked up, ready to go, and they go out and fire. Because if they're not ready, then it's all about fear, getting shut down, anxiety building up, and on these guys, and they see the crowd, they see the environment. It's very intimidating. So you got to be ready for that. And so you can talk all about it, but we have a lot of guys that have been there and seen it and experienced it. So they've really done a great job on our team, really telling them what to expect, how it is. And it's very unique. It's tough to win. They don't lose much at Carver Hawkeye. You got to go take it from them. And, that's the challenge this team I put in front of them. Hey, this is what it's about. It's not going to be easy. So you have to go. You got to beat the champ. You got to go knock him down in his place. So it's going to be fun. I would think it's going to be. I think it's live on BTN, so it's going to be probably a well viewed match come Friday night.
Mark Manning with us, Husker Wrestling, Iowa, and what a weekend it's been for the Big Red, and the Big Red faithful came out. Coach Manning, about 90 seconds here, but that topic of fear, have you seen that feeling flip a guy, and can they perform off of fear? Does it give them an extra boost?
Yeah, you use it for yourself to really motivate yourself. I think you brought up a good point about it's about helping our team. Our message really is about helping each guy as an integral part. Well, what do I mean by that? There's 10 weight classes. So to win a big duel like that, it's going to come down for someone to put someone on the back, someone to pull an upset, and then to feed off of it. I see this guy do it, I'm going to go do it. I see this guy do it, I can do it. And the belief and the hope in each guy is contagious. And so I think that's what we did last weekend. A really good job, I thought. And we're gonna just keep rolling with that, And it's not so much about who we're wrestling; it's about how we wrestle. And so we're really trying to create our own identity and go let it fly on Friday night.
Keep that momentum rolling. BTN, 8 o'clock, Nebraska at Iowa. Coach Manning and his wrestling squad has been doing amazing work, and they've been doing it for a long, long time at Nebraska and in the Big Ten. Coach, best to you and the guys. Have a good one Friday night. We'll be cheering. Yeah, thanks. We had a great crowd on Friday and Sunday. I was so impressed by so many, people from Syracuse and Hickman and all these people from surrounding towns came and supported it. It was really great. I think people were just loving it, loving our team. We hadn't been home for a long time, so we have some home duels left, and I really appreciate Husker fans turning out. So thanks a lot, and more to come, right? That's right, Coach. Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys. Go Huskers.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Coach Mark Manning, Husker Wrestling at Iowa Friday, BTN. The full interview going to be posted here shortly on Hail Varsity's podcast page with our Hurrdat family. Full show and then different segments. Matt Schick earlier, former Husker and Buffalo Bill Chris Kelsay, Mitch Sherman, Coach Manning. We are at Rosie's tomorrow downtown, 10th and P, ahead of Nebraska and Ohio State. Get a beer, make a snow angel, and get on to PBA. Big ball game for the Big Red, but you have some volleyball news.
Yeah, outside hitter Whitney Lauenstein announces today on Instagram that she is leaving the Husker volleyball program. This comes following the death of her father, as she's going to step away, spend some time, she says, to heal and spend time with family. And obviously a big loss for the Huskers based on how much she played last season. But I think what's more important is the personal life and making sure everything's all right on the home front. So our thoughts are with her as she spends some time with some family here. Unfortunate situation all around. Yeah, hugs to her and her family, and best wishes. And I'm hoping we can get Jacob Badil on at some point this week to talk about the loss to not only for the Husker volleyball program, but just what it means moving forward, and not the news you want to be reporting on, I guess, whenever it's sad news to report such as this. But obviously, life more important than volleyball and life more important than sports a lot of time, even though sometimes it doesn't feel bigger than sports with how much we talk about it on this show, Schmidt. It is sometimes important to get that reminder that you need to take a step back, and there are a lot more important things than sports in life. So our thoughts are with her. Absolutely. Well, there may be, if you listen real closely, and based on the crowd at Folsom Field, a lot of times you could hear Ralphie's footsteps. Just because Folsom was maybe quasi-full. Now, our last trip to Boulder was 2019. Yeah, it was 2019, and it was a sea of red and a tough finish for the Big Red. That sound you hear may not be Ralphie, but it may be a auditorium full of current buffs making a rush for the exit. This is nuts, and it's got a little bit viral on social media with Camp Dion. We talked with Schick a little bit earlier about Coach Prime. We'll catch up with Coach Barnett this Thursday.
But Coach Brewster, and listen, you take a straw poll of folks around the college football world, and you're going to have some coaches that like somebody they bump into on the recruiting trail, and then there's going to be some folks that you'll get the eye roll, or they just won't say very much because, well, if you can't say something nice, don't say it at all. And people I've touched base with have all three categories for Coach Brewster, and I was waiting for Arlie Emerly to make his way if he hadn't passed away. But if you're a Full Metal Jacket fan, well, this is what it reminded me of. This is Coach Brewster getting confused on Boulder from the Air Force Academy.
When I say stand tall, okay, I want you bouncing out of your seat and stand tall. When I say stand tall, get your ass up. Stand tall. Sit your ass back down. Stand tall. We coming. We coming. Raise the goddamn roof. Raise the roof. We coming. We coming. We coming. We coming. If them Colorado buses show up, and 60 minutes of hell coming with it. 60 minutes of hell coming with it. The time is now, man. The time is now. Sit down.
To hit the portal. I'm glad he at least ripped off a good Western, Tombstone. Hell's coming with me. Listen, that didn't work in the NFL. It wouldn't last very long, I guess, in the NFL. And do you have to be screaming at kids to get their attention? I would think Coach Prime is much swag as he walks in with. Kids are going to sit up in the chair. I mean, meeting one, the tone was set. There's always cameras around him. He's going to get good players. Is he going to get coachable guys? And at what point, after an 0-3 start, presumably, or 0-5 start, maybe they make an idiot out of me. Maybe they hit the ground running with talent. And they were 1-11 last year. Maybe they get the right guys that are coachable, that are high-level athletes. But if they don't win initially or find some success, Coach Brewster's military-type attitude is going to wear real thin for 18 to 22-year-olds, specifically 18 to 22-year-olds in 2023, and it's going to be Charlie Brown's teacher. They may find him with the old bar of soap and socks and give him a code red.
Well, Brennan chimes in on the StreamYard saying, what is that, a jelly donut? Reminding Colorado not to bring any jelly donuts in the Foot Lockers to the team meeting.
Is that a jelly donut I see? You eat it, they're paying for it.
I think the most incredible part of that movie is that
there's lots of them.
He does the whole thing. It's off the top of his head. All his insults. None of those lines were written out. Have you heard this?
No, I know. I read the backstory.
So like he wasn't even on site to be the drill sergeant in this. He was on site to be like the guy to ensure that it was right. And then the drill sergeant just wasn't living up to expectations. He wanted the lead gig. Yeah, he wanted it. So he shows up. He's like helping him out. And then he like at one point he says, "You're not doing it right." And I'm going to go and show you how it's done. He just thinks of all these insults off the top of his head, and the director, whose name is escaping me right now.
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. Can't talk right now. But he says that's the man. Like, we don't need to go any further than that. Like, you just saw how he roasted all these dudes off the top of his head. We don't need to go any further than that. But that's just a great story about Full Metal Jacket.
Private Pyle's got the loaded weapon, and Arlie Emery's in his boxers and T-shirt, and he's, "Mommy and Daddy not show you enough love." I mean, just still losing it on the guy. Here's Dion. Do we have time for Dion?
I don't think we do. But okay. I do have one quick story here, speaking of meeting rooms, and that's that great Husker, Slick Steels. If you remember, Senior Day 1981, sang the national anthem in full uniform. That's what a lot of Husker fans remember him for. He passed away a couple years ago, but I remember him because he came and coached my middle school football team way back when, Union Bank, and on our football team was Patrick Pliny, son of Bo Pliny. So we, every single year we got to go watch a practice, and I mean, you look at what Colorado's doing there, and you think, yeah, that's pretty Air Force Academy. But we walk into the meeting room at Nebraska, at the time it was a newer meeting room, the padded chairs, and Coach Steele says, See, back in my day, we didn't have any chairs like this. You had to sit on the front of your chair. Your back couldn't touch the backrest. You had to sit at attention the entire time. I'm sitting there thinking like, man, I don't think I want to play college football if that's what the meeting rooms are like. And I'm not quite sure if that's if that was a team-wide rule, if that was a position room rule for Steels or not. But I just remember him saying that, like, yeah, no, we couldn't even lean up against the back of our chair at team meetings. And me as a little seventh grader going, that's extreme. And then I watch Colorado and say, never mind.
You watch Coach Brewster. Listen, and it's funny how you set a culture and a tone where there was a story of some hotshot running back that came in and was trying to sit in Amir's seat. And Amir's like, no, dude, that's mine. Hilarity ensued, and that true freshman found another chair. We'll wind it down. Hail Varsity a Tuesday. We're presented by Currency.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, road show tomorrow. Come see us down at Rosie's, downtown Lincoln, just south of the Embassy on 10th. As you prime up for PBA, it's Ohio State, Nebraska, tip-off at 6. Big-time ball game for Nebraska, and really a big moment for Ohio State, which direction they go as Nebraska tries to pump the brakes a little bit on a bit of a spin, and we'll see where they go. At least you're going to have a chance to be not completely full strength, but Sammy Griesel's back, which is good. We'll have
allegedly back. We're not 100% sure, but we do know that he practiced in full today.
Right. So we'll have some comments from Fred tomorrow. We'll be at Rosie's tomorrow. We are kidnapping Bill Dolman. He'll be with us. Elijah Herbel hanging out. And Rosie's downtown. Come see us before tip at 6. We're on 4 to 6 live at Rosie's tomorrow. I know the weather looks gnarly, but there's snowmen to be made. There's Coors Light to put on top instead of a top hat of your snowman, allegedly. And what I'm saying is it'll be okay.
Just slow down on the roads. Give yourself a little extra time to stop. You'll make it work. With how well the road crews in Lincoln do, and I want to give a huge shout out to all the winter road crews in the city of Lincoln. I guess the entire state as well. Just how well they do around here. Give yourself a little extra time to get to your destination. Slow down on the roads. You'll make it to Rosie's just fine. And then it's on an Uber to take you home.
Right. Or just wonders a few choices of hotels. Just crash. Couldn't get back, boss. Sorry, weather was bad. We'll work remotely. No.
It could work.
I'm trying to sell it. Let's sneak in Tom Brady in his last comments last night before he walked off. Sounded like a fare thee well to Tampa, but not necessarily his career.
Yeah, it just feels like the end of the season. So I just want to say thank you guys for everything this year. I really appreciate all your effort, and I know it's hard for you guys too. It's hard for us players to make it through, and you guys got a tough job, and I appreciate all that you guys do to cover us and everyone who watches and is a big fan of the sport. We're very grateful for everyone's support, and hopefully, I love this organization. It's a great place to be, and thank you everybody for welcoming me, all you regulars, and just very grateful for the respect, and I hope I gave the same thing back to you guys. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Future Denver Bronco?
No, absolutely not. No way. Future Vegas Raider.
That could be fun.
That'd be great. Think about that. Eventually, you guys will find a coach and an offense with Russell. You got Mahomes. You got Herbert. You got Brady.
Well, see, I was more saying based on what I saw in Tampa this year, I'd love to have Tom Brady in Las Vegas, just screwing everything up for them. I shouldn't say that about the greatest of all time. I apologize. And the thing is, if he came to Denver, I would take that all back in a heartbeat and say he's the greatest to ever do it. Why is anyone doubting him?
No way he's going to Donkey Land. Mike Sauter from Hurrdat reporting that you had, and this was a earlier report this morning, but you have the Metro rounds today with Ed Foley at Omaha North, checking out Tyson Terry. Satterfield at Bell West, looking at McMorris and Davon Hall at, of course, West Side, where they were making their rounds as well. Satterfield to check out Caleb Benning and the Rezacks. Talk to you tomorrow from Rosie's at 4. Thanks.